Like, I was all for fucking Trump, dude. I was all for Trump. And then hearing this whole fucking thing of, like... So, yes, I have my kid's dad on child support, okay? I get $200 a month for both of them, okay? What is $200 going to do in California? Nothing. But it is what it is. I don't care. It's something. It's, like, something for me to take the boys out and do something fun since I can't do it on my own. Now, with Trump passing the law that if your kid's on if you put your baby dad on child support, they're going to be getting the money from the child, like for child tax. How the fuck does that work? How does that work, dude? I'm literally the one that takes care of them 24/7, have for the past 10 years. How can he file and get all the fucking money when I'm the one taking care of them? He's been MIA for like 7 months. What?
What do you mean you didn't know? I am being so sincere right now because I truly want to understand how it is possible that in this day and age where we have access to any piece of information that we want in our hands, and we have 40 years of history that we can look back on for this individual, where a scenario exists that you legitimately wouldn't know. There have been dozens of women who have made allegations of SA that span 4 decades. There's video, pictures, audio, testimonies, flight logs. He has been held accountable in court for one of those essays. Where's the confusion? This is also an individual that has a history of conning people, not paying people. He's been in court hundreds of times over the last 4 decades. And I think he's lost about 92% of these lawsuits because he, in fact, does scam and cheat people. He has been found guilty of fraud in a court of law on 30 however many counts. Where's the confusion? Why are you not connecting that all of those things that span 40 years are the same exact person that is now in the White House right now? Where's the disconnect? And beyond that, where was the confusion about his policies? He told you what he was going to do. There's a 900-page manifesto. I know he said that, no, I don't know anything about that. But before the election, I asked, what is the difference between the policies that he's presenting and he's owning up to and the policies in Project 2025? I never got an answer because they were in fact the same. What he was saying out loud as the policies that he wanted to implement was what was in Project 2025. Yet we were told, no, that's not the case. How did you not know? I want to understand.
Oh, why do poor white people vote against themselves time and time again? They vote for Trump and the other MAGA politicians only to have every promise broken, prices go up, social supports evaporate. Here's why. First, remember what I talked about recently, the psychological wage of whiteness. That term was coined by W.E. Du Bois to describe poor white folks being paid with social status rather than decent living conditions. They're convinced by the elites that they're better than black folks, better than immigrants, Latinos, LGBTQ folks. They're convinced that being white puts them in the same league as the elites. Of course, the elites know otherwise, but the poor whites buy it because they're grasping at straws. Second, they are convinced that the people they're supposedly better than are the big threat in their lives. Not the rich, not the corporations or the politicians, but immigrants, black folks, welfare queens, LGBTQ, criminals, the usual scapegoats. Third, the elites promise protection to poor white folks. A politician comes along and says, I'll keep those people in their place, or I'll kick them out, or I'll lock them up. Or more politely, I'll defend your values. They don't say, I'll make your life better. Well, they say it, they just don't mean it. They'll say, I'll make sure they don't get ahead of you. Fourth, they vote for the punishment, not the policy. When a law gets passed that slashes public housing or school funding or food aid, they think, good, that'll stop those lazy freeloaders. And they do some mental gymnastics that make them believe it's worth losing those things for their own families in order to see those problematic Black people and immigrants and so forth being punished. It gets to a point where just seeing those guys being punished is reward enough, which is pretty sick, but that's how behavior works. Their housing, schools, and groceries are on the chopping block too, but they blame that on Biden. Always a scapegoat. They get hit by the same policies they were told would punish the others, and they blame the wrong people. The system fails them, but they've been trained to blame the scapegoats, not the cause, which is the rich people, the people they voted for. So they think the problem is still those people, not the fact that they were personally manipulated by the people they voted for. They're basically saying, I'll take the hit as long as you don't help them, or worse, as long as you hurt them. That is the psychological wage Du Bois was talking about, the trade-off between material security for racial status. And that's a crying shame, folks.
You know, guys, I can understand Black and brown people for Trump, okay? Maybe their proximity to whiteness, or their wanting to feel a proximity to whiteness, made them vote for him. Hey beautiful people, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you for stopping by, supporting your girl on this channel. So credit goes to the creators in these videos, guys. Many of these personal regrets and frustration are just as a result of the fact that all these policies are directly affecting them. All of them coming out and saying, oh, I voted for Trump, now this, I voted for Trump, now that. If all those policies were not directly affecting them, you wouldn't see anybody who would come out to say, I regret my vote, or coming out to even complain or see anything. But now that all these things that he said, all these things that he promised, and I mean, he's just doing whatever he promised, right? All these things he said it at his campaign. He was never shy about talking about what he would do to immigrants and all of that. But now that all these policies are negatively affecting all these voters, now they are coming out. Well, you know what? People do not care. They say you effed around, and definitely you should find out.
Trump supporter lost $500,000 and all of his savings for retirement on the Donald Trump Truth Social stock, and now his family won't talk to him. I feel like that SpongeBob meme where I can't tell if I should feel bad or just laugh. But what this guy said is, I've been dreading this post for a while now, but I finally must admit that I've lost a substantial portion of my life savings investing in the DJT Donald Trump stock. I was unable to continue this slide and sold the majority of my stake this afternoon at $26.55 per share. This is a disastrous fall, resulting in a loss of nearly $450,000 of my retirement savings. I'm now forced to return to the workforce at age 76. Please, family, learn from my mistake and do not put everything into one stock. I feel like from the moment Donald Trump stepped foot in the White House, we could tell that the people who support him the most will also suffer the most when his scam comes crashing down. Whether they're suffering politically or socially or financially, they take the heat and Donald Trump gets by without a scratch. But this guy also said, to the media hounding me for answers on my DJT investment, I need time to myself. Family won't talk to me, before commenting on the stock. For anyone in the media that would like to discuss my new Kindle book, Biden's Last Shit in the Oval Office, please contact me. All right, so this guy's
MAGA's just losing their shit over this Cracker Barrel thing, right? And I think it's funny because this Cracker Barrel changing its logo and Target changing its CEO, trying to go back with this whole DEI initiatives that they had, has proven just one thing and one thing only. there's not enough white dollars to go around. More importantly, white male dollars to go around. And they don't want you anymore. Because while you guys were busy trying to gaslight everyone and telling them how great your life was because you worked in a factory and fixed air conditioners for a living, women and minority groups actually went and got an education. They make the money. They are the ones with the money to be able to spend it, while you guys are sitting here trying to defend how great your life is. Even capitalism and patriarchy, because those two are, glued together, they both know you're no longer worth anything. And I just love watching you all just fall apart.
So yesterday at the end of my shift, the last stop of the day, there was a customer that wanted to talk to me and asked me where I get my job. I just told him I applied for it. He was like in his front yard making a fire or something. Older gentleman wearing like a MAGA veteran's hat. I looked and seen his truck had like a MAGA sticker on it in the back. But he's like, yeah, man, like I really need a job right now. I should be retired. But he raised the limit by 5 years, so I can't retire. And I'm like, well, who would that be? And he said, that guy right here. And then I was like, that guy back there in your truck too? He's like, yeah. I was like, he's a motherfucker, isn't he? And then he just proceeds to talk about his PTSD and whatnot, but it was just an interesting moment.
I saw a video earlier of a woman whose MAGA mother texted her that they had an ancestry hit, that they had a suffragette in their ancestry. And the woman who made the video responded and said, that's really cool, but it's a shame that she would be so disappointed in some of her descendants and the way that they voted this election. The mother responds and goes, yeah, it is a shame she would be disappointed. I don't really know what the mother was even implying there, but the daughter responds and says she would be really disappointed that some of her descendants voted for a man who plans to take away women's rights, to strip women of their rights, and who talks and behaves towards women the way that he does. And the mother responded and said, well, he's not actually going to do that stuff. They're not actually going to do that stuff. And the daughter had a good response. She went on, like she asked, in what way do you care about women? It doesn't seem like you actually do. And that was a good response. But I was stuck on he's not actually going to do that, because that is not a relevant response. That is not a relevant response to you voting for him. And he said he's going to do all that stuff. Whether he does it or not doesn't really matter in this conversation. Of course, it does matter. We don't want him to do that stuff, but it doesn't really have relevance to this conversation because you still voted for him. You voted for that stuff. Whether it does happen or not, that is what you voted for. So I feel like we do this all the time. And I've said this before, I said it like before the election, but we entertain these conversations with them that they just totally steer it in another direction. We need to steer them back to the actual conversation, because her saying he's not going to do that stuff is not relevant. Is not relevant at all to the conversation at hand as to what she voted for. And they do this all the time with every topic. They say something and I don't know if they realize that it doesn't make sense as a response, that it's actually totally irrelevant as a response, but we let them and we sort of go along with it, and it negates the progress that could be made, because now we're talking about something else. We need to be better about steering them back to the real conversation, to the original conversation. You can also respond to the other stuff, but we need to work on, and the daughter did a great job. I loved her video, was great, and she had a great conversation, but we need to focus on steering them back to the actual conversation.
So that girl that voted for Trump and her dad is going to die in 6 months. He's detained. Someone said she has a GoFundMe. And somebody said, why isn't she asking MAGA for money? Why isn't she asking MAGA for money? She voted for Trump. Of course you're going to feel bad for the family. Of course you are. It's not their fault. What Trump is doing is wrong. You can be mad at her, and you can also feel bad for her dad and for her family. Should we donate? She's getting what she voted for. They're deporting her father. That's what she. Why would you? If he's undocumented, why? So many questions.
This one is just a classic episode of voting against your self-interest, voting against the things that will affect you directly. I mean, sometimes I wonder if these people were not informed, or they were listening to the wrong part of the news, or they just decided not to hear what everybody was saying, or they were just emotionally involved, because Trump's rhetoric, right, often speaks directly to people's frustrations, hopes, fears. There was even a time, there was a video I watched that it was like, oh, grocery prices have never been this high. If you want your grocery prices to go low, vote for Trump. And I'm like, look at where we are now. Even when policies are harmful, right, in practical terms, the emotional connection keeps these voters loyal. And some of them, personal experiences of regrets are growing, right? Many of them are saying that all he promised he was going to do is what he's doing, and they are angry. And I wonder why, right? Guys, do you feel pity for those people? Or do you feel, because it's everybody at the end of the day that is finding out, and these same people, right, who voted against their self-interest, many of them are also finding out and they are regretting big time. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in my next video. Please stay safe. Mental health is important. Ciao.